The Titus Blackplume fusion is in the game. It is live today. And this guy is a little bit of a strange champion. So for those of you who are maybe a little bit newer to the game and you don't quite understand what all the hype is about, I'm going to explain it to you. I'm going to break down his kit so that you understand exactly what's going on with this guy. And then, of course, we're going to put together our no-fail fusion plan so that those of you who want to pursue this fusion have the best chance of success. I am Colred. This is Colred Plays Raid Shadow Legends. Let's get started. Here he is, Titus Blackplume. He is a Void Affinity Legendary defensive-based champion in the Bannerlords faction. And I have to say, this guy looks really cool. Bannerlords don't look cool. Bannerlords are like the ugliest faction in the entire game. I mean, they're supposed to be like medieval knights, you know, and there are sometimes an occasional cool detail. Like you look at Helior, it's a really cool shield, you know, but the rest of them, it's like, all right, like whatever. I mean, Taras and Marichka are a little bit different because they've got that kind of, you know, Slavic vibe to them. So they're kind of cool looking. But other than them, there really aren't that many. I mean, even Quintus, like, not great looking champions, you know, Rathalos, whatever. I mean, even, you know, OG champions who I love, like Septimus, you know, this guy's been around for 6 years. He needs a visual update, right? And, you know, in fact, I think the best looking champions in this faction are pretty typically the epics. We've got Archmage Helmet here, who's got like that cool mustache and beard and the, you know, the crazy eyebrows. And, you know, he's got the lightning effect there. We've got Lady Annabelle with the blood dripping off of her hands and the crazy bladed fingernails and the whole vampiric look here, you know. But in general, you get champions like this, you know. It's like, oh, okay. I mean, you know, even the legendaries don't look particularly interesting. So I think Titus instantly becomes the best looking champion outside of maybe, you know, who actually my favorite champion in this faction is Ursula. I think she looks really cool. The warrior nun look, really interesting design. Yeah, I would like to see a little bit more of this in the faction. I think that is cool. But I think Titus probably leapfrogs her to become the best looking champion in this faction. Cool shield, cool helmet. It's got the little, you know, glowing runes on the chain around his cloak there. The sword looks great. The armor looks great. This actually looks like a mythic champion in this faction. Like he should have a second form. But honestly, the best looking character skin in the whole faction right away. Anyway, outside of that, let's take a look at the actual stats here, do a little bit of a review. So HP at 18.5, which is pretty standard for a defensive-based legendary. It's not a high number, but it's not a low number. It's right about where you would expect it to be. Defense is pretty good at 1509. Again, I would say this is a solid number. Anything in the 1500s is pretty solid for a defensive-based champion. So he's going to be, well, you know, really survivable. This is what you expect from defensive champions. Speed's always a little bit lower for defensive based legendary, so 97 is maybe on the low side of average. Again, so none of the stats jump out at me as great, but none of them jump out as bad either. This is all in keeping with defensive based legendaries. For a Void legendary, I would have liked to see a little bit more. Like, it would have been nice to see one of these three stats be kind of on the higher end. I think the best stat out of the three is probably the defense at 1509. When you're in the 1500s, that is solid. But again, it's just barely over 1500. So this is not on par with some of the higher end defensive based champions. Got 50 resist in the kit, which is nice. I don't know if he needs it. We'll have to take a look. But okay, so let's look at the A1. Now the A1 here has a 60% chance when booked of placing a block active skills debuff for 2 turns. This effect cannot be resisted if this champion is under a shield buff. So there are a couple of things to think about here. First of all, block active skills generally gets used in PvP the most. That would be very useful in PvP. Or it gets used in wave content, right? So you want to block the active skills of certain champions, like in Doom Tower or maybe in Centranos. This can be a very good maybe Faction Wars hard mode. This could be a very good skill for that. It's on the A1. This is a very rare skill, especially to be on an A1. It's just a rare skill in the game, block active skills. But then this effect cannot be resisted if this champion is under a shield buff. Now that's really interesting. So we don't need accuracy for this if we have a shield. Pretty cool. Now, whenever an ally counterattacks, so not Titus, but whenever any other ally counterattacks or teams up with allies to attack, so if there's an ally attack, or instantly activates a skill, this also has a 60% chance to place a block active skill debuff on that target as well. So if you have somebody who counterattacks with an AoE, potentially you could block active skills on everybody when Titus isn't even going. So again, PvP potential, wave potential. There are a few bosses where you can block active skills. There's at least one that I can think of, which is the, not the Magma Dragon, but the Eternal Dragon. So potentially there. But yeah, it's an interesting A1. I think people are going to find some interesting theory crafting ways to put teams together to make use of the skill. And again, remember, this effect cannot be resisted if this champion is under a skill buff, a shield buff. So if you're thinking shields and then you're thinking ally attacks and counterattacks, we're already thinking about the teammates for Titus, right? Based on this skill. So think about Valkyrie, who brings a shield and a counterattack. Think about Lanathril. Lanathril brings an ally attack and I think 2 shield skills. So anybody who does that. I'm also thinking about blood shield rings and blood shield accessories. I wonder if this is going to work in a similar way to how the Scarab boss works in Doom Tower, where the shield can go on after the attack because the check happens after the shield goes on. So potentially he could actually bring his own shield with nothing more than a blood shield ring, basically making it so that he doesn't need accuracy on this A1, which would be very cool. Okay, so the A2 attacks one enemy. This attack is always critical if this champion is under a shield buff. So he's going to be a damage dealer in addition to being a debuffer. But what's interesting here is the shield buff means now you don't need crit rate, at least for this skill. And this looks like it'll probably be his hardest hitting skill. Because this attack also gains a damage boost equal to the value of the shield. Now, if you've been around for the Corpulent Cadaver thing, if you've been around for a couple of years, Corpulent Cadaver was a rare who had a skill like this, and they eventually nerfed Corpulent Cadaver because he created the highest damage like clan boss teams in the world, right? The world records were all created with a Corpulent Cadaver. Based on what the other content creators have said who are in the program, you know I'm not in the program, this is working as intended. They know exactly what they're doing here. The developers want this skill back in the game somehow, and so they've given it to Titus here. And I think, the difference is for Corpulent Cadaver, I believe it was on the A1 here. It's on a 3-turn cooldown, so that's a little bit different. It's also a Void Affinity Legendary, not just a rare. So this skill will destroy bosses. This skill will absolutely destroy bosses if you can grow a shield on Titus. Now, the 2 shield growth champions are Wixwell and Brogni. So if you have either Wixwell or Brogni, you're golden if you pick up this guy. You will solve clan boss instantly. You will solve, Demon Lord clan boss. You will solve Hydra. You will solve Chimera. You'll probably even solve, stuff in like Centranos hard mode. There's all sorts of things that you can solve with this, but basically clan bosses, you're talking about new world record potential on this skill. So this is what the excitement is really about. It's about this skill. And again, remember, this attack is always critical if you're bringing that shield, and you're bringing that shield also for the damage buff. So he's going to be really easy to build. You're not going to need accuracy for his A1. You're not going to need crit rate for his A2. You can put all of those stats into crit damage, into defense, into speed, whatever you need. Now, this also removes all debuffs from all allies that the target is killed. So if you are using it, say, in Arena, it's also going to be a cleanse. And if the target survives, you have an AoE provoke. Again, that would be more of a wave content or PvP ability. So we have this PvE damage plus PvP utility. Okay, so I do think that he's going to be showing up everywhere. He's going to be showing up everywhere. Now, this effect cannot be resisted if this champion is under a shield buff, just like the A1 cannot be resisted. So again, no accuracy needed for the provoke, no accuracy needed for the cleanse, obviously the cleanse, no accuracy needed for the block active skills. Now, you also have this ability, ally protection buff, increase attack buff, increase speed on a single ally, also fills out allies turn meter by 40%. That's not really great for speed tuning. It can work, except it instantly activates a skill at the end of an ally's turn if that ally has no buffs and their HP is lower than 100. So if you are doing a shield growth clan boss team or something like that, this should only fire in a predictable way, and that means it's going to be able to be speed tuned. But the speed tunes are going to be a little bit different maybe than what we've seen from other shield growth teams in the past because of this 40% turn meter. That's a lot to fill a single ally's turn meter by. You also have to make sure that lands on the right ally. So if it bounces around, it could be tricky. Might be easier to just turn this off. And that's fine because increase attack would be for another damage dealer. You don't need another damage dealer on your clan boss team. This guy will get you 500 million. He'll get you 400 or 500 million damage probably just on his own in a clan boss team if it's a shield growth team, an infinity team. And then finally, each time an enemy hits an ally, the ally's next attack will deal 10% more damage for each hit they take. Stacks up to 100%. The damage increase resets after that ally deals damage. This will work for every ally without a cooldown. I actually feel like this is a PvP skill that will also do decently in PvE, but think about pairing him with like a Mortu Macabre, a slow build Mortu Macabre. Mortu Macabre gets hit and he can potentially unlock his special skill, but if he doesn't unlock his special skill, he has a really nice AoE ability that could potentially do up to 100% more damage, so he could still wipe everybody out with his AoE if it's fully stacked. You could also potentially put this with like a slow build UDK. Like imagine a slow build UDK in arena who's also got decent damage because you can actually build him as a nuker. I think we're going to see more nuker UDKs paired with TITUS BLACKPLUME in PvP. So I think this guy works in PvE beautifully. He works in PvP beautifully. Yes, to maximize his value, you're going to need either Wixwell or Brogni or both. But even if you don't have one of those champions, if you have Valkyrie, if you have Martyr, if you have Vlanatharil, if you have UDK, if you have Mortu Macabre, if you have any of these champions, and probably others that I haven't thought of yet, this guy is going to provide a lot of value. And he's the kind of champion that the community is going to continue to unlock over time. So watch your favorite theory crafter content creators. Like I'm going to be watching Bronco's channel. I'm sure in the next month, he's going to come out with ridiculous, teams that optimize this guy and get all sorts of solutions into the game. And then of course, we don't get a lot of Void Affinity legendary fusions. I think I can think of like 2 or 3. And some of them aren't even that great. Like I do think, who am I thinking of? What's his name? A couple of years ago, we got a really good one. I don't even remember where he is. I think he's Sylvan Watchers. What's his name? There he is. Emek Trunkheart. This was probably the best one. I know we also got Supreme Elhain, who's okay. She's okay. So take advantage of the opportunity to get a Void Legendary for free. He's going to do great in Faction Wars. He's going to do great in Doom Tower. He's going to do great against all the clan bosses. He's potentially going to be very good in PvP, including Live Arena. So that's what the hype is about. So as far as the scale is concerned, like, is this guy a must get? No, I don't think he is. Some people are calling him a must get. I would say he's high priority. He's not going to be as easily maxed out. He's not going to contribute to your roster in ways that are really easy to activate if you're a new player. But if you can get him without breaking the bank, I would highly recommend it, because as your account grows, this guy's value will scale up. So even if he's not like the most amazing champion for you right away, in 6 months' time or a year's time, he may actually be a linchpin to your roster. So I would say high priority, not a must get. So don't break the bank for him if you don't have to. But I'll let you decide. I'll let you decide how valuable you think this guy is going to be for your roster. Okay, so that is my review of TITUS BLACKPLUME. Let's go ahead and put together our no-fail fusion plan for those of you who are deciding to go after TITUS. So here is the fusion event calendar for TITUS BLACKPLUME. As you can see, it is a hybrid fusion. What a hybrid fusion means is we're going to be collecting fragments for these epic champions, 4 copies of the same epic, and then we're going to have to do the classic thing of promoting him to 5 stars and then fusing the 4 copies into the TITUS BLACKPLUME before the end of the event. So this is not a fragment champion that you can hold on to in the portal forever. It's not a classic fusion because you're still collecting fragments instead of rare champions. So it's what we call a hybrid fusion. But a couple of things to point out right away is that we have a summon rush going on early. Then we have the extra fragments, the extra 50 fragments from this summon rush. But you don't necessarily want to think of these as extra fragments, right? When you have fragments, they're just fragments. It doesn't matter where they come from. These are 50 fragments to consider. And then, of course, we have a champion chase here on this weekend. This is going to be the 2 times weekend. It should be 2 times sacreds. That's what I'm expecting, but you never know. They might mix it up. They might make it 2 times primals. They might make it 2 times everything. But we just had voids. I think we had ancients 2 weeks before that, so I'm expecting sacreds for this particular weekend. And that's going to make for an interesting kind of scenario, because typically we do summon rushes with sacred, so we'd have a summon rush here. We do this summon rush with sacreds as well, and then we do sacreds for the champion chase. So this would be a very sacred heavy kind of sequence of events. We have to talk about this summon rush and what that could do. Would we be better off skipping the champion chase tournament and the summon rush and just going for the special summon rush? Maybe a possibility. So I just wanted to point that out right at the get-go. But let's go ahead and back it up and break all of this event down. Today is July 3rd. We have the Dragon Tournament and the Champion Training Tournament going on. If you have to use energy, remember, we want to really double dip and triple dip when we can, so we want to wait for this Dungeon Divers event to start before we really get into the Dragon Tournament. And if possible, we'd like to do the Dragon Tournament with food to get champion training points. That would be your quadruple dip, right? You get the rewards from Dragon, you get the Dragon Tournament points, the Champion Training Tournament points, and the Dungeon Divers event points. That would be your quad dip. Okay, so that's perfect. If you can't do the Dragon Tournament with food, then it's just a triple dip, which is still awesome. That's fine. But if you're doing the Dragon Tournament right now, you're just getting a double dip. So you want to hold off. Hold off until tomorrow. I think we have about 16 or 17 hours from the time I'm recording this until the Dungeon Divers event goes live. You can actually check the timer in the game when you watch this. But you have to spend energy today. So what are you going to spend energy on? I would say you can do a couple of things. There's actually an event dungeon tournament going on right now. You could put some energy into that. You could also certainly wait to do that during the Dungeon Divers. That's a good thing to do. So you could just use up your 2K energy here and then put the rest into the event tournament dungeon. That's probably what I'm going to do. You could do a little bit of campaign. You could certainly do some campaign. You could also do some Minotaur if you wanted to do a little bit of Minotaur, but basically save as much energy as you can. You know, just make sure that your passive energy is ticking so you don't waste it. And, you know, if you wanted to put a few points into campaign, that's probably the best place to do it because you're going to need a lot of champion training. We've done back-to-back champion trainings recently. In fact, it was like back-to-back-to-back. It was a whole lot of champion trainings. So you may be low on chickens. So if you need to run campaign to level up some, 3-star, 4-star chickens, go ahead and do that. Now, we have the classic arena takedown. Those are always easy. I'm just going to check these off. Just make sure that you're active. The only time this is tricky is if you are in like low silver. So if that's the case, you may need to really be focused on using the maximum number of tokens you can use every day. Now, this 2K energy will go into this Dungeon Divers event. So that's going to be free energy. Remember, a Dungeon Divers event typically takes around 5,000 energy from a standard dungeon. So a gear dungeon like Dragon or Ice Golem. You do have a second Ice Golem tournament here, like a second tournament that can go into this Dungeon Divers. And this Ice Golem can't go in anywhere else. Can't go in anywhere else. So you may as well throw it into this Dungeon Divers event as well. So that's going to be the first day of the Ice Golem. That's going to be 4K. Which means that, you can do there's another Corrosa's, it's not a conquest tournament, whatever it is. It's just another event dungeon tournament that's going on right now. Let me check it. What's it called? It is a Corrosa's conquest tournament that's going on right now. And then there'll be another one. So, you could put the extra 1,000 energy into that, or you could just do more champion training campaign. However you want to do it to get this Dungeon Divers event. But this Dungeon Divers event is going to have a lot of things going into it. Again, remember, it takes about 5K energy if you're doing the dungeon tournaments. Now, I'm going to skip the Summon Rush for a moment. We're going to look at the Gear Enhancement events. This shouldn't be a problem. Remember, this is roughly 20 million silver if you are level 60 or above. Account level 60 or above. And, you want to plan on 20 million silver. Sometimes you can get it done for cheaper, but you want to plan on 20 million silver. Remember, you don't need all that silver right now. You're going to be doing a bunch of dungeon tournaments. I usually leave this for like the last few hours before I do the gear enhancement, but make sure you don't miss, right? Your life can get busy. Maybe work gets busy. Maybe the kid's sick or something. And all of a sudden you just miss on this gear enhancement event. So you could do it right at the beginning and then never have to worry about it. But I generally do it at the end so I don't waste, any silver. All right, now we get to the middle of the week. You can see there's a bit of a hole. I always look for stuff like this. There's a bit of a hole here. Like there's an Ice Golem tournament that we're going to be done with. There's Classic Arena that, is in this window, which like it'll be done by the time you hit that window. There's Gear Enhancement event. So there's going to be like a 2-day window here. And unfortunately, it's after the 4th of July, right? The 4th of July is going to be the big weekend for most people here in the US. That's our holiday. But then we hit Monday, Tuesday, and there's just like a 2.5-day hole where there's almost nothing going on. So in this window, I would just say, go ahead and you can continue, spending a little bit of energy on campaign, make some more chickens, go ahead and put it into, the event dungeon if you want to. Don't overdo it. Don't spend gems. But you got to use your daily energy anyway. So go ahead and do some Minotaur farming. Get some value out of this downtime here. Or just step away from raid a little bit because fusions are usually tricky. But this area, there's nothing going on other than the Summon Rush. So just be aware of that. Now, as far as, this Corrosa's Conquest tournament is concerned, you just have to burn your 2K energy here. It might be a little bit more. It might be like 2.5K because not everybody's going to be farming in the most efficient place. I don't think stage 20 is the most efficient stage, but I'm not 100% sure. So you can do a little bit of research and figure that out. I don't think 20 is bad. I think 20 is okay, but I think it might be like 24, 27 or something. That's the best place to farm that. But you want to farm it, get it done. Unfortunately, the Dungeon Divers event starts after this tournament is over. But the good news is you got a chance of pinpoint gear here. So you may as well throw that in there. Now, if you have the potential to farm the event dungeon with food, that would be nice. I don't know that I can do that at a good stage. So this is just a champion training event that I'm going to have to do through campaign and maybe a lot of tavern, probably a lot of tavern. Gear enhancement event, another 20 million there. And again, in this particular case, you're not generating a lot of silver in this window. So you're going to want to have some silver holdover from the other stuff, or just be aware that in this kind of hole, maybe you want to generate some silver. You could do some spider. right? That would be a place to throw your energy, whatever. You will start a spider tournament up here. But again, you probably want to hold off until the end of this to put your 2K into this so that it goes into the Dungeon Divers event. So even though it feels like it overlaps the gear enhancement event, I don't think it will if you're trying to be efficient with your energy. So just be aware of that. Okay. Dungeon Divers event number 2. Yeah, we've got the Fire Knight tournament as well. So we put the 2K here. This is a nice big window. You got 2 days there. So again, you know, the 5K energy here, 2 of it's going to be coming from Spider Tournament. 1's going to be coming from the Fire Knight tournament. If you wanted to overspend on one of these 2, I would probably overspend on the Spider Tournament so you can get your silver for the 3rd gear enhancement event, which is going to be another 20 million. And then that's it. That's it for all of the regular events. Now we got to talk about the shard events. But again, I think this will be a little bit more energy intensive, probably. Normally, you're talking somewhere around 16 or 17,000 for a fusion event of this type. But I think what you're going to want to do is probably a little bit more of that. It's going to be more like 18K energy. The reason I'm saying that, by the way, is yes, this Corrosive Conquest tournament I think is going to be a little bit less efficient. But unfortunately, you also have to train these guys up. And so you might do it all in the tavern, but if you can do, say, 2 of them at least in a champion training event, you want to do that. And remember, you don't want to summon them until this champion chase tournament. So what you would like to do is right in this window here, you want to try to get all of the ones that you can. Now, unfortunately, because of the way it works, you get 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 1, like that's 100 fragments. And then that means these fragments are part of a second epic. So that means you're only going to have 2 epics going into this champion chase tournament, but they're 2 void epics that's going to give you 700 points. So make sure that you do that. And then train as many of them up as you can in this window so that you get some value for them. But unfortunately, I think at the end, you're still going to have to do a little bit of training, or you're going to have to get in the tavern for that last Golem Yellow Hand. Okay, let's talk about, let's delete all this. This is a mess. All right, let's talk about the shard events. So for a hybrid fusion, we do have the extra points. You're going to have 700 points here for this. I expect this point total to be on the higher side because they like to do that for classic fusions and hybrid events. The summon rush, typically this takes between 5 and 7 sacreds worth of points. And sacreds tend to be the most efficient way to do summon rushes. This one, for the first level of points, the way we saw it last time, I think it was at 7 and 12, which was really unfriendly. It hasn't been that high before. This was the most inflation that we've seen. So if they continue with what we saw for the last, fusion event that we saw, the special summon rush, it's going to be 7 sacreds and 12 sacreds. And then this champion chase is usually, again, it might be a little bit higher, but you can usually get it done with, like, let's say 4 or 5 sacreds, maybe even, but call it 5 sacreds, and then mystery shards and fragment champions, right? You're going to get the 700 points from the epics and then whatever other champions you have in your fragment collector. But still, you're now debating between the two. So it's like if you do the summon rush, the first summon rush, the normal summon rush, and the champion chase, you're looking at somewhere between 10 and 12 sacred shards worth of points. If you go for the special summon rush, you're looking at 12 or so sacreds if you want to get all 50 fragments. And you do, right? You don't want to do the special summon rush and only get 25 fragments. That doesn't make sense. You want to go for all 50 if you can. This is something that we're going to have to track. Unfortunately, this summon rush will be over when this one starts, right? And so we won't know the point totals. So if you go in here and it's expensive and you're like, well, I got to pay 7, and then this one's cheaper, the second one's cheaper, all of a sudden you got hosed. You could spend for just the 25 at that point. the first 25 fragments and hold on to the rest of the sacreds. But here's the thing. This is going to be a 2-time sacred weekend. That's what I'm expecting. Unless Plarium hoses us, which they could do. Basically, you got to decide where your value is. I do not spend Void or Primal shards on Summon Rushes. If I'm going to do them with some kind of shard other than Sacred Shards, I will use Ancient Shards and I will use Mystery Shards, and that's it. The value isn't great on Ancient Shards, but if you're trying to hold on to your Sacred Shards, that would be the way to go. Please don't spend your Voids on this. I know the Voids have decent return in terms of points, but you really want to hold your Voids for better events than a Summon Rush. So if you have a decent stockpile of Sacreds, the good news is it'll probably take you somewhere in the vicinity of 12 Sacreds throughout this event, regardless of which way you go. The better, more likely scenario here for this particular fusion, in my mind, is not doing the first Summon Rush, looking at the extra Summon Rush, and if I have to, I'll go for the first 25 fragments here. Hopefully it won't be 7. It'll be cheaper. It'll be 6, maybe 5. If it's on par with the first Summon Rush, like if the first Summon Rush is 6 Sacreds and the bonus Summon Rush is also 6 Sacreds for the first 25 fragments, then I'm good. Then holding out for the bonus Summon Rush is the right move, right? Because I still have the opportunity if I want to go for the extra fragments here. You could look at the progressives. If there's a good progressive that you like for the first Summon Rush, you could go that way. If you want, you could hold out for the second one. And usually they announce that a little bit in advance. But because it's a 2-time sacred weekend here for the Champion Chase, I would probably want to do this Champion Chase either way. And what that means is I'm going to save Sacreds for that. I'm just going to save Sacreds for that. I'm going to do the Champion Chase. I might even overspend again because it's a 2-time sacred weekend. So you can decide. This is just information that you need to have in order to plan your way through. But again, you're looking at roughly 12 Sacreds for whatever path that you choose. More if you want to hit everything or get some bonus fragments. So if you wanted like extra fragments here because you want to avoid this weird champion training, or you wanted to avoid this tournament or something, or this dungeon divers, then you could go for the extra fragments if you have a lot of Sacreds. I'm not going to do that, but that is a choice you could make. Okay, so I think that's everything. If I've missed anything, let me know in the comments below, but hopefully that plan helps you. And don't forget to check out fastidious.gg, I believe it is. He's got that fusion tracker. I use it for the last fusion. It definitely helped me. So if you want to use a fusion tracker, he's got one. Then you don't have to use pencil and paper. It just makes it a little bit easier. Okay, that is it for me today. Thank you so much for hanging out. I have been Colred. I will see you in another video soon.